I've been putting off making this video. I watched it weeks ago, but I wanted to really let it sit, so I'm not influenced by heightened emotions or what others around me are saying. And this video is coming from the perspective of someone who loves Cowboy Bebop. It is one of my favorites, and some people may even remember that I made a video about it almost 2 years ago, and it was actually one of my better performing videos. In that video, I gush about the show, because truth is, it is one of my favorites. Like, top 3, so I hold a lot of sentiment for this show and franchise, if you will, and it doesn't really help that I'm not really a fan of this new wave of remakes, and especially ones that change things, although that is bound to happen. So my first impression of the show left me pretty annoyed. It moved a lot of stuff out of order and gave characters almost completely different personalities, backstories, motives, and dynamics. And I was okay with it. It just annoyed me. However, I warmed up to it the longer I watched, and there was actually a small section in the middle of the show that I thought was fine. I thought that it did what it needed to and offered a decently entertaining show. However, never once in my mind did I think that this was Cowboy Bebop. Sure, the characters had the same names, the world was similar, but it wasn't Cowboy Bebop. Like I said before, so much had changed that it wasn't even really a live action, more like a spin-off. These weren't the same characters, these weren't the same stories. I mean, sure, it had the general idea of where it was going, but the journey along the way was completely different. So I took it as a completely different story. And when you do that, the show can actually be enjoyable, like I said before, because the second you start comparing the show to the anime, things get bad quickly. Like the fights. I wish the fights in the live action were better. They seemed clunky and slow, and I wish Spike used more kicks like he did in the anime, because contrasting that to the anime, it was really fluid and quick, so it was really a big downgrade. And the live action introduces characters way out of order. I mean, it's okay, but you lose a lot of cool characters and interactions that I felt made the original show special. And that's a big thing with this live action. I feel like it lost what made Cowboy Bebop so special. It turned a story with insane amounts of depth and nuance into something more akin to a Marvel project. There's nothing wrong with that, I love Marvel, but there are certain stories that can accomplish different things, and there's never been a Marvel movie that has made me feel like what I did after finishing Cowboy Bebop. So to turn something so great, something in my eyes that was literally perfect, into something that is pretty oversaturated at the moment is kind of a letdown. But yet again, I don't think the show would be able to even accomplish what the original did, even if it copied it perfectly, because some things are just so impossible to translate to the real world, to live action, that it can't be done. Some more issues that I had with the story was that it just introduces characters' backstories at really weird times. It just sort of interjects them into the story, and it doesn't always work or flow, and the dialogue here wasn't the best. It tried to be really witty, but just ended up being really wordy, and it just doesn't have the same flow as in the anime. There, everything was straight to the point, and here, well, it takes so much longer to tell you the same information, or even less in a lot of cases, as the anime, and that just leaves this show feeling boring at times. Like, it has its moments in being good in the way that it was striving for, but just so many moments where they would just keep talking, or the story would just slow down to a crawl, and you'll be sitting there bored out of your mind. Because truth be told, there was a point in this show where I just wanted it to be over, so I could watch JoJo Part 6, but I powered through it, and boy, there was a lot of powering through, but I had to do it, and a lot of that came towards the end half of the show, and I chalk a big amount of that disinterest into Vicious, because for some reason, this show wanted to give him an actual character, and this completely ruins him. In the original show, Vicious was scary and ominous because we knew little to nothing about him. That rule number 1 of making a villain scary: don't show them. But instead here they wanted to give him his own character, an arc, and even a story in a way. We spent so much time flipping over to Vicious and the Syndicate that it really ruined their presence. Vicious went from this super ominous ghost of the past in the anime to a wife abuser with anger issues in the live action. The Syndicate went from this all-out powerful force to some glorified mobsters in this. Look, it just didn't work. And if I said the beginning of the show was watchable and enjoyable, this back half completely took all that away. You have no idea how many times I wanted to drop the show, and the continuous story they were going for here is totally obsolete to the episodic adventure style they used previously. I wish they adapted this show like Disney did with The Mandalorian. A continuous narrative throughout the season broken up into episodic adventures, because this would have forced the writers to condense the information and be straight to the point, and it probably would have been just way more engaging with each episode popping with uniqueness instead of the weird blend I got from trying to remember what happened in this. Now the whole show wasn't all bad. I actually think the music and visuals are great, like actually phenomenal. I love what they did with a lot of the sets and the music, because, well, the music is amazing. But other than that, I don't think the show really worked that well. Nothing in the show is super horrible like many have probably led you to believe. It's just not the most faithful and suffers from a lot of its own issues. But it still had its moments of being enjoyable, even if a lot of the stuff they tried to do doesn't really work in live action. As a Cowboy Bebop live action, I don't think this show is good, but I don't think of it as one. So as its own independent show, it's not awful. So the Cowboy Bebop Netflix live action gets a 4.5 out of 10. Just watch the original. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments of your own, make sure to leave them down below. Trust me, I read them. Also, we recently hit 400 subscribers, which is kind of crazy. Seriously, thank you all so much. This wouldn't be possible without you guys, so just know I really appreciate you all. But as always, stay awesome. TooAwesome, thanks for watching.